But I do think I want to go back to talking about this one part, which is the audience's caution for what's going to be adapting to now. Why Secret Invasion didn't work. Why Marvels, which I watched drunk, and that's why I liked it very
Probably the
much.
only way you could watch that movie.
You know what? There's like I do like what's her name, Kamala Khan. I do like
Yeah,
her. I
I
think
like the
she's very
actress. She's cool.
lighthearted. She's very adorable.
Yeah, she's
But in
people.
terms of
She's good people.
the stuff, my whole point of bringing this up is you're right about the tone. The
Yeah.
tone has shifted somewhat from the seriousness or lightheartedness in the beginning of these intro movies into the okay, now we're getting into the nitty gritty of real stuff like destroying cities, what that's like, how do we get the government involved now that the world understands that these individuals exist, to the Endgame era, and now we're like in a limbo state where we're trying to start something fresh and new, but something's missing. There is a tonal issue, and I'm guessing maybe because
The
of
writers
the
can't write.
there is a huge aspect of this too, but I do think that towards even when the first phases were beginning for the Marvel movies,
Yeah.
people began talking about the formula.
Yeah.
They started
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the formula and
Yeah.
how movies begin. You
Yeah.
know, you got an intro to a superhero, finds out he's got powers. How does he handle his new powers? Starts fighting the first villain, loses to that villain, then finds a way to overcome his own personal issues to fight the villain at the end. There was a but you didn't actually go into depth too much into the villain either. It was more of the hero's journey, not the hero into the. Anyway,
Right. Right.
my whole point was there is a tonal shift now where I think they got into the we just got to get project after project after project out because now we have dominated the film industry. We have three movies, usually sometimes at the same time in the movie theaters, dominating, taking out other competitors. You have a lot of people who most likely aren't fans of Marvel themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe they liked a couple of the movies, who are also Golden Globe winners. There are people who are, very good at a certain specific movie, and they're like, hey, why don't we rope you in to make another superhero flick for $100 million, $150 million? And usually these indie type movie makers, they have no idea how to handle big budgets like that, and two, they're not familiar with the source material. I can admit I'm not familiar with all the comic source materials either. I am familiar with some of the movies,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I still, if I am being given this job task, I need to do my homework.
Right.
I really need to get to understand the lightning in the bottle that were these characters, why they work for people, why for these specific individuals. And if I'm going to take on the mantle to do these films, I should know why they work.
Yeah.
And I should bring that
I should have reverence
naturally
for the stories. Yeah.
through my storytelling, not through a quick pace, maybe a few jokes here, a quick fight at the end, and then
Yeah.
yeah, we're good. It's out.
Yeah.
You liked it, right?
The
You liked it.
decorporatization of
The corporatization of the
that
formula
of my favorite word, content.
of content.
Yeah.
And so once we got past the end game, I know there was a leadership too in the change for the CEO,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
obviously COVID happened, and there's a whole lots of reasons we can
lot
give
of
excuses too. There's lots of
Yeah,
excuses we can give it. It really does come down to the writers. Do they understand the material? Do they understand why it worked for fans? And then can they produce that in natural storytelling?
And are they in it for the right reasons too?
For the right reasons, too.
One of the reasons that I see quite a bit. One of the things that I see quite a bit. We talk about diversity, inclusion, and equality, representation. It can go both ways, right? One of my things. I am for, maybe this shocks people. I am for DEI, done right. Okay. My thing is,
Oh, we're going to DEI.
if you have writers, if you're going to hire writers based on their appearance, based on their, what is it, color, creed, ethnicity, you are not, and thinking that they're going to have different stories to go with those, right? You are not, you are not shopping for talented writers. You are shopping for trophies.
Yeah.
You are looking, any studio. It doesn't have to be Disney. It doesn't have to be Sony. It doesn't have to be Warner Brothers. Any studio will get called out on this, because if your move is to say the entire cast, for as an example, I don't know this personally. As an example, Black Panther 3, the entire writers room, all of the directors, all of the studio heads, the whole crew, they're all black. what does that do if none of them have read the Black Panther comics? If the writer and the director, one writer and one director, they are the only ones who have some insight into the Black Panther story, but everybody else is somewhat loose in what they understand Black Panther to be, and then you have studio heads saying, "Don't read the comics. We're not here to do that. We don't want that shit. We want to make our own original." That is a disservice to the story, to the fandom, and to your own initiative, because you are treating the identity portion
Yeah.
of these talented people. No one says they're not talented.
I can get into this.
But you are shopping out for people as if they are trophies.
Yeah.
As opposed to talented writers who can bring in, as you say, a more broader fan base.
So,
but yeah, get into it.
I do think there is a kind of progression, a timeline of this too.
Yeah.
And I think it also begins with social media.
Yeah.
Because social media invited the people to really critique with each other online about certain movies, about the writers and the directors too. And so whenever you see someone like Blade was
awesome.
it was one of the best movies, and it was just
Rated R.
someone creating an action flick with a character to kick ass and kill vampires,
Yeah.
and there was blood.
Yeah.
Was it cheesy at sometimes? Absolutely. Him catching the
Campy.
sunglasses, all this.
Campy.
It was campy. It was there's all these moments. As people start kind of opening up as well to in the film world, not even like the superhero world, in the film world of, hey, do we have enough diverse, black members, Hispanic members making movies? Because there's a wide, variety of people that want to make their own movies, but they feel like there's no avenue for them to be given a platform to actually, or even funding, to create their own projects in Hollywood. And I think that also tapped into the superhero world as well. When you see movies like Shang-Chi or movies like Black Panther, there was, hey, the audience themselves, through social media, were able to say, I would want to have a black person do Black Panther. And I understand this too, because, I wouldn't say they may understand the culture more. It was just the person, you want to give the opportunity to the person to make a story about the character that might have some similarities in culture, in the
Especially
real
for
world,
the time,
especially
the
because
lives that those
specifically
people lived.
with Ryan Coogler,
Yeah.
who grew up in Oakland,
Right.
right? He lived
Right.
in Oakland, and Killmonger he grew up in Oakland.
Yeah.
There is an authenticity to bringing somebody that understands that world. We live in I don't know if we want to admit to where we live, but
California.
We live in
put
California.
We'll put it at that. Whether the audience likes that or not, you can make this idea that Californians are super liberal or super base. I really don't give a shit. At the end of the day, fandom has to rise above that. Has to rise above this identity politics.
Yes, but
that comes into the
but
stories.
there
But
is also
continue.
this thing, because I do ascribe to the idea you need to have authenticity.
Yes.
If you start
Yes.
having some person who's outside of a specific, because it goes into dialogue too. When you write dialogue and you're writing dialogue using aesthetics or ebonics, right? And you have like a white person who starts writing about ebonics, but they grew up in
That'd
like
be weird.
Whitechapel Hills,
Connecticut.
and you start. It just sounds awkward, especially, and that's happened in movies lots of
Yeah.
times.
Now that you're a young adult, you'll need to learn societal do's and don'ts.
Sorry, bro.
No big whoop, dog. Yo, did you catch that new vid on the box?
True that. I'm up to snuff on all popular trends.
Word.
Yeah, you can
What
tell.
the fuck are you talking
Yeah,
about, dude?
don't do
No one
that.
talks like that in
Yeah.
these areas. It just seems so inauthentic.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying in order to get that authenticity into the realm of Oakland for Killmonger, or the dialect or whatever, for even for African countries, you have to have a black writer only. That's because only one. black people have grown up in different areas too. What you have to do is have someone that understands the material, understands how to create a good story,
Right.
understands what makes those stories work. Specifically for Black Panther and for Ryan Coogler, it worked. It mixed well together. And Ryan Coogler himself wanted to bring actors and people in this world, give opportunities to black actors. And this is around a black character, African character, and you want to have the authenticity in that as well. So when I say that, that's part of it.
Yeah.
In Shang-Chi, there's that authenticity too. You want to have, there's in social media, people wanted an Asian director and writer to write Asian culture in Shang-Chi. There's an authenticity to that too, versus say someone like me, myself, who is, you know, a mixed of background of Venezuelan, Mexican, whatever, and trying to write Asian culture. Now, when you have, you know, someone, when there is this now necessity of, okay, now that we have this character, can we get a gay director to do this? Can we get a black person to do only, if it relates to a black character in comics, we can only have a black director. When
Yeah,
we can,
that-
if there's an
that
Asian
I
character, we
have
can
to-
only have an Asian
that- yeah,
director.
that's where you
do-
start falling into
That's
trouble.
where you start getting
And
into weird
the
territories.
DEI. That's the DEI done wrong.
Well,
So again, I'm going back to.
I hear DEI. Here's the thing. I hear the words DEI,
Mm-hmm.
and I understand what it means, especially on the internet scale
Mm-hmm.
and the politics scale and all this. I want to really just describe the word as inauthentic.
Yeah.
Writing an inauthentic
Right.
filmmaking, where you're not getting real into the characters and you are not picking people who understand the material they're working with, especially because it's not their own material. They're working with material and IP that's already been created.
Right.
So you have to tap into the worlds that's already been created and send and write something for the audience to that character, that love that character. And if you're just looking at a character and saying, well, this character is black, this character is Mexican, this character is Asian, well, the only way we can have this story is if we get a black director, if we get a Mexican director, or we get an Asian character. That's not how you make a good story. You have to have the skilled person who understands the material to make it. It has nothing to do with black or Asian or
Right.
all this stuff.
Right.
So you're getting into this. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm saying that's DEI done wrong, because that. I mean, you can. The reason why I'm saying that is because they are looking at DEI not just as a form of representation, but tapping into a way of telling the story, of having some background in that story, right, through lived-in experiences, and then of course giving people they're not a second chance, but that opportunity to tell those stories where they wouldn't originally have them. That's not what's being done right now. You look at, for example, She-Hulk. She-Hulk is one of the worst rated Marvel series that they've ever created.
I haven't even seen it.
I was looking, perfect example.
Yeah.
That I was looking forward to that story because I saw that as
You were interested in
the
She-Hulk.
original, yeah.
Oh.
Because that was an original Avenger character, Hulk, essentially passing the torch, or teaching his cousin Jen everything he knew about controlling his powers. But the studio and Jessica Gao, the director and part writer for the story, they viewed that as an opportunity of injecting the ailment of what it means to be an American woman, or a woman in general, in modern day society. And it goes right off the bat into Hulk, Bruce Banner explaining how difficult it is for him to be the Hulk, but through, meditation, through therapy, and, recognition of this will be who he will always be the Hulk. He can't separate that from himself, and trying to impart that lesson to his cousin, Jennifer Walters, is then, I still remember this line, and it was so sour when it came off screen. She's saying that she is infinitely more burdened as a human being.
Oh, I've seen that clip go around.
Because
yeah.
of
We have to make sure of your ability to tolerate the stress and regulate your emotions, especially your anger.
Well, here's the thing, Bruce. I'm great at controlling my anger. I do it all the time. But when I'm catcalled in the street, when incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me, I do it pretty much every day, because if I don't, I will get called emotional or difficult or might just literally get murdered. So I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you. So all of this just feels like projecting a lot of shit onto me.
See.
No, I'm doing this.
Okay, this is completely new territory.
How many cat calls she goes through in a
Yeah.
day, how dangerous it is for her to, I think it was on a to be on a train, how dangerous it is. But and so the writer just goes off into, yeah, it's far worse to be a woman in modern day society than it could ever be for you, Bruce. So don't give me your morality, your lessons. So that's DEI in the studio's head, but if it had been done right, it could have been a lesson in mental therapy, because Banner as a character has always, I mean, before the Hulk, he suffered with depression from an abusive father. He had an abusive father, so he had an abusive childhood growing up. He had bottled up and repressed all of his emotions so that when that gamma radiation hits him, all of that is embodied through the Hulk. Banner has on multiple occasions tried to commit suicide.
Yes.
But his emotional side refuses to let him end his own torment.
Yeah.
And in that reaction, the torment then comes out and lashes out on society, making it far worse for
Yeah.
Banner to have to wake up to and go, shit, what did I do now? Hearing that as a story, again, I'm not mincing words here. DEI done right would have been, you don't have a writer like Jessica Gao say, I wanted to make a critique on the male fan base and the male toxicity that resides within modern audience. This is a critique of the male fan, as opposed to having someone who understands the hardship of depression, of domestic violence, of violence in general,
Yeah.
of seeking help through therapy, through religious practice, and understanding both men and women. I'm not going to equate them. What I'm saying is we all have different burdens in modern day society. Some are inflicted by gender, some are inflicted by race, some are inflicted by religion and creed, but these are all things that a hero, a true hero, will overcome, as opposed to lashing out at the people who are trying to teach them a lesson.
I don't think it's lashing out. Here's what I think it is. I think it's
You should finish
It's an
She-Hulk.
attempt. No, I
It
don't mean.
stays that way.
I don't mean that, because this is not just within She-Hulk. This happens a lot in lots of new media, and also in, I think, within the last 10 years, specifically the last 10 years of trying to invite new groups to come in and try to explain, I guess, the conditions or the understanding of what I go through as a person. And so when I don't think it's a lash out at men from She-Hulk. Again, I've seen clips, I've seen things. What I think it is,
Watch
it's
the show.
because specifically, I know it was specifically a group of young women writers that wanted
Not
to
just women.
do a, not just women,
Not just women.
but specifically
mostly
a lot
women,
what I have seen, especially that scene as well. It goes to, hey, men don't understand what women go through, so we need to tell you exactly what we go through, and then you'll understand. But the irony is, when I saw that scene, of course, I had the same reaction of, you don't know what it goes through every time we get catcalled. You know, it's like, lady, you don't know what we go through. As it's honestly just as a misunderstanding of what men go through.
Yeah.
You're trying to get men to relate to this character, but you're dismissing what men go through as well. Men go through a series of depressions as well, of joblessness, of mental health issues as well. And it kind of dismisses that entirely. It also dismisses it to the character who probably has the most mental illness in front of his face, which is Hulk.
Which is why it felt so out of pocket. And again,
I just think
I'm
I think
mentioning
it's,
I'm mentioning the aspect of who Disney. I'm gonna die on this hill if I have to, because I have the perfect examples of DEI done right, and that is, just to fast forward a little bit. DEI done right is what was his name? DeMeo.
DeMeo.
Yeah, from the X-Men animated series, X-Men '97. You have the writer from Shang-Chi, who's currently working on Spider-Man: Brand New Day. You have Ryan Coogler. These are all DEI done right, because these are people who understand the authenticity of the character, the backgrounds in which they live in, that they can write what they understand and what they've lived through. I say it that way, and I'm actually gonna do something
No,
like this.
let me just close out real quick. You can go in a sec, but let me close out
Sure.
with the She-Hulk thing, because I still want to talk about this one thing, which is I know we talk about DEI done right, DEI in general. I know people usually get like a certain feeling when they hear that word now, because it's everywhere across politics and online and all.
I'm gonna
It's
keep it with
everywhere. So
politics, shit.
when we keep hearing DEI, it's like an eye roll, for both sides or whoever side you're on. But I think again with the aspect of the explanation of you don't understand what we go through. So let me tell you, I don't think it's a lash out. Again, I think it's ignorance. It's hey, you're also not looking at. You want us to look at your side, but you're refusing to look at the side you're preaching to, the side you are telling this to, and not recognizing, hey, maybe they also go through this. How do we relate to each other?
Right.
Versus you can't understand how you relate to me. Let me tell you what I actually go through, and you listen to me, and then maybe you'll understand. And then they want the nod, but that is not, I don't think, a lash out. That's just a listen to me. You need to understand what I'm going through type moment.
That is a lash out.
No.
That-
No, a lash out is.
What do you mean lash out?
When a lash out would mean, like a
We started. See, I'm doing this on purpose, because this is the commentary. This is the conversation that the studio, and I'll put this on Kevin Feige. I'll put this on Bob Iger. This is the kind of content, the conversation that they want about Marvel IP. But this is not what they bought it for.
No, I know, but again,
you
this
see
goes
what I'm
back.
saying?
This goes back to also, specifically, I think studios themselves do not understand storytelling. They
Yeah.
understand the business side of it. They
Yeah.
understand the analytics, what works, what doesn't, money wise, and like, let's do that again. But when it comes to actually picking the writers who understand the material, they also don't know that. They look at the accomplishments of the past writers. Oh, they worked on this, A, B, C, D, but never, hey, do they have the passion for this project? Do they understand it? And then can they bring the storytelling together to tell to that market of the audience? And so, again, back to the She-Hulk, the lashing out thing, when I say that, I mean, there is someone there, that team there, who also admit I think they also admit they've never really
They never read She-Hulk.
read She-Hulk. They never
weren't fans of
so they
She-Hulk.
don't have the passion for it.
Right.
They have the understanding you're working for Disney. You are working to create a project that's going to make potentially a huge money, and you want to write that story. And you're using this as a platform to tell what you, the writer, go through, or you, the writer, trying to tell the audience of what women go through. But there is a lack of passion there for the character of She-Hulk, and there's a lack of explanation or understanding different sides of the coin. That, hey, the person you're telling all this thing you want to preach to is the number one person that is going through what you're saying She-Hulk's going through, and that's the Hulk.
Yeah.
You don't tell that to the Hulk. The
I
Hulk.
don't think anybody has it worse other than Bob Reynolds from Century. Between those two, maybe Eddie Brock in a way. Those three need some serious therapy, and those three can each be a lesson in mental therapy and just camaraderie in general, right? Compassion in their storyline. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So when I don't know why I think of
I say this because I hear you use the word lash out. I hear you.
No,
use
there's
the
a
word lash
specific
out.
word I'm thinking of.
I know. I know you don't mean lash out in particular, but again, I'm saying watch She-Hulk, and maybe some of our viewers that have seen She-Hulk, maybe you disagree with me. That's totally fine, but having read Hulk's comics, having understood, mental therapy, what it can do for you, reaching out to a compassionate, support group to get you through your darkness. I actually like that you used the word lash out, because understanding that that writer's room was not interested in reading She-Hulk, they'll do nods to little comic book plot points from episode or comic book number this, comic book number that, little threads here and there. Titania showing up in this one. These little D-list actors coming or D-list characters coming in, little nods to the fan base, but it is in a way Jessica Gow's lashing out at what she calls the male fan base toxicity is more that the fan base in general, regardless of gender, understands the character of She-Hulk, and that is a direct competition for the writer's room, because the writer's room is told, don't read the comics, but the fandom has read the comics, and so we go, look, this is not Jennifer Walters' character. This is not what She-Hulk goes through. She-Hulk would be more understanding of her cousin, and because she retains her true self. She's more compassionate, or she's more charismatic as She-Hulk, right? She's much more, you can call it sexy, whatever. She's more confident as her character, right? She's both athletic, but she's sharp-willed as a lawyer, right? Banner doesn't have that. Banner is either very, no, I wouldn't use the word shy, but he's reserved when he's the Hulk. Banner is trying to retain that sense of focus so he doesn't lose control at an insult, right? But Walters is able to be herself at her peak and aid her cousin through his turmoil, through everyday life. I like that you use lash out because it is a misunderstanding of the She-Hulk character that Jessica Gao and the writer's room go, look, it's not our fault that we don't understand the She-Hulk character, but we understand what it means to be a woman in modern society, so we are going to, and this was the mistake, we are going to make the male audience that understands the character better than we do, we are going to make them the villain. You see the reverse chess here?
I could understand this in the response. In the response for how people didn't like the show, were making fun of the show. I saw all of that, But in the actual making of the show, I would not use lash out. I would use incompetence.
Yeah,
okay,
I understand.
Because when you are writing this stuff, they're not thinking, oh, yes, and we're going to make the men hate us. Absolutely. Because why would you do that?
Oh, dog, I have the perfect quote for you. I got it right here. I do, actually. Jessica Gao acknowledged and even satirized the toxic fan reactions to the series by making them the villains, the intelligentsia, within the show. I'm going to continue. Instead of ignoring negative reactions, Gao incorporated them into the show's narrative by creating the villainous male group, the intelligentsia, who embodied the misogynistic and toxic elements of the online fandom. Gao knew in anticipation. Gao knew that was going to happen and deliberately wrote the show with a meta-awareness of its audience. Ladies and gentlemen, the director, the writer, knows who she is writing for, but she forgot the same people who were going to show up for that show. She forgot to also honor us by giving us a good story.
Okay, if that's true, and you say that's true,
we'll post the link as well. I'm not going to fire blanks.
No, I will find it, and I will absolutely correct it. I'll post it right here.
I don't want to be. I don't want to misquote. I don't want to do any of that.
If that is true, then yeah, you're going to get the hate. We could also say stuff like that also in the Star Wars side too.
Yes.
When you don't have someone that is intentionally
I was so
trying
looking
to do
forward.
this.
I'm re-triggered already.
I know.
I was so looking forward to that She-Hulk show.
The reason why you know what, if that's true, then I will take all that back. Okay, I'll take all that back. If that was your intention, yeah, you are going to get natural hate, and you cannot complain when that hate comes to fruition. You just cannot. You can whine, you can get upset about it, you can hide in the corner, because the anger, I understand, on social media, specifically on social media, the anger, the rise of that anger and the flood of people online can be exhausting, and it can be much. But if that was your intention and that's the way you pushed it, again, I defer. I stand corrected, and this is your fault. But you know what? I guess the reason is I when I hear things like, well, it's because of DEI, it's because of blah 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 blah, it's blah, then I kind of get a little bit. I really don't think it's as simplistic as DEI.
Right.
I
You've got
think
a
it
point.
really
You're
has
right.
to do with the individual person being incompetent,
Yeah.
being arrogant, or being, not talented. And then when all those things come together and it releases,
Both of these can be
and
true.
people get upset at them, it's like, well, no, I'm sorry. It's just you just weren't good enough.
Yeah.
You were just not a good enough
You were not
person,
right
or
for
you were
this
not right for
project.
the project
Yeah.
specific.
Yeah.
And so when it just fails, sorry, it failed. It just wasn't good. It was not a good story. And so, but honestly, if that individual did do that, then yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know what you
Yeah,
want.
yeah.
There is the arrogance right there, to think, you know what, I'm going to poke the bear of social media. I'm going to intentionally piss off fans. Well then, okay, you did it. You did it.